you.
Lord, Woody, somebody's whispering in your ear. Everything's gonna be okay.
Oh my goodness. Toy Story 4? How can they make another one after Toy Story 3? Oh well. I wish I knew about this earlier. Oh man, if only I had more Toy Story merch. Wait a minute. I know one place where I can find some merch. This is ridiculous. Who would charge this much for a Woody doll?
Hello?
Why would you charge such a crazy amount for a Woody doll?
It's not that much money.
Then how could you spend the same amount for a Nintendo Switch and the entire game library?
Well, now that's a bit hyperbolic.
Anyway, the point is, I'm not spending that much money for a Woody doll.
Well, unless you can offer me something, I'm going to hang up on you.
Well, I am going to review the Toy Story games.
If I can join in, you get the doll.
Very well. Hello, Internet viewers. I'm the Fairly OddGamer.
And I'm Seth, aka Toothpaste Reviews.
And we're here to talk about a well-known Disney franchise.
Frozen!
No.
Kingdom Hearts!
No.
Finding Nemo.
Why?
Because I love messing with you. Let's get this Toy Story movie game review started.
Alright then. In the late 80s and early 90s, computer-generated graphics became popular with the success of films such as Star Wars, The Wrath of Khan, and Tron. During that period, a little-known company called Pixar developed computer-animated short films such as Luxo Jr. and Tintoy. Disney took notice of this and decided to collaborate on a feature film that would later become the first ever full-length computer-animated feature film, Toy Story.
The first Toy Story movie is a simple movie in concept, a buddy adventure featuring a cowboy and spaceman, but the animation and cast both helped to provide a movie experience no one had ever seen before. This led to a $361 million gross for the film, and guaranteed future films for the studio. Of course, Toy Story would get a sequel only 4 years later in 1999, but the trilogy wouldn't be completed until 2010 with the release of Toy Story 3. All three films are highly praised, with the three combining for a 100, 100, and 99% score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Don't you mean GreenWoodLT?
Hey, that one hasn't been released to the public yet, so it doesn't quite count.
Oh, I see. Personally, I love the Toy Story movies, with the second and third movies being the most memorable. The first movie feels like a simple buddy adventure while trying to save each other from peril. The second movie feels like an expanded version of the first movie, but it does feel like you're watching a perfect movie for kids. The third movie has the basic representation of the Lightyear reveal in regards to the setting, but still a good movie regardless.
These films are incredibly important to me. I remember watching the first two so much that my parents got sick of it, and when the third was released in 2010, it was the first midnight premiere that I ever got to attend for a film. The first movie, while dated, is still an incredibly good movie in its own right. Tom Hanks and Tim Allen absolutely killed it as Woody and Buzz, and are a huge part of why these two are iconic Disney characters. Toy Story 2 is my personal favorite movie, with a refined animation style that still holds up today, and new characters Jessie and Bullseye being excellent additions to the main cast. The story is more emotional, funny, and does everything that a good sequel needs to do. The third film, while not my favorite, is by no means bad. The animation has the benefit of a decade's worth of technology, making it the best looking movie in the trilogy by far, and the Prison Break story is fun and action-packed, that gives way to an incredibly emotional ending sequence.
and with the release of Toy Story 4 coming soon, it's best that we talk about the video game tie-ins based on the 3 films. And first off, we have Toy Story for the Sega Genesis. I was going to talk about both the Genesis and the Super NES versions of Toy Story because they're both pretty much the same game. But seeing that the Super NES version has a bit of screen crunch, I decided to cover the Genesis version. And why is that? Because Sega is better than Nintendo! Anyway, let's just start the game.
To infinity and beyond!
Did Buzz somehow make the logo fall into a bottomless abyss and crash? So like Aladdin, we get story segments and cut screens, accompanied by a 16-bit rendition of the main theme, You Got a Friend in Me. And I gotta say, hearing the song play is always music to my ears. And after seeing the level description on an Etch-a-Sketch, which is actually pretty clever, we get to play the game. You know what these graphics remind me of? A Sega Saturn game called Clockwork Knight. It's about a knight named Sir Pepperazzo who falls in love with a princess named Chelsea who gets stolen by an unknown force and ends up saving the princess. That game came out 1 year before the film's release. I say this because the graphics from both games look very similar. Overall, this game is actually pretty good. In fact, I feel like I'm playing through the entire movie in game form. Going back to what I said about the music, it's actually pretty good. It uses both the original music pieces as well as bits of music used in the original movie. Mainly the main menu and storyline. But sometimes the music can sound a bit distorted in comparison to the Super Nintendo version that has better sound quality. Some of my favorite levels include Really Inside the Claw Machine, which is pretty much Toy Story's version of Doom, and Sid's Workshop of Horrors because it perfectly replicates Sid's room from the movie. Not to mention the moment when Woody catches fire.
Hot, hot, hot!
This is my favorite music track in the entire game. It combines the essence of suspense and terror that Woody goes through of being on fire. Imagine if you were in a dire situation like being late for work. Just have this music play throughout the situation and call it a day. Another level that I like is Run Rex Run. You have Woody riding Rex trying to escape Andy's room while trying to avoid angry toys like trains, soldier men, and RC. Hey! Whatever happened to my Rex plush? How you doing, Hux?
Did I scare you? Tell me honestly.
No, but you almost got me that time.
Aww. I thought I had you this time.
You were close, but not quite enough to make me jump.
It's alright, dude.
Hey, as long as you're having fun, I'm glad to see you having fun.
Awesome! Later, dude!
But there are some levels that I don't like very much, like a Buzz clip. You play as the RC car trying to bump into Buzz, somehow knock him off the window. The controls in this level are completely out of whack. The main problem is the arrows showing you which way to go. Honestly, it feels disorienting because you end up getting confused on where to turn and how you control your timing. But the RC levels get better as you progress through the game, especially in Daytona, but not in Light My Fire. Another level that I don't like is the Claw boss fight. You have to attack the claw with these squeaky alien toys, and it's determined by how many remaining coins Sid has to put into the machine. This level requires you to have perfect timing and getting lucky with your attacks. Other than that, Toy Story on the Genesis is a fantastic game. It shows how a movie tie-in game is done in the right way, which is similar to what Aladdin did also on the Genesis.
Personally, I agree. To an extent. While I think the game is a perfectly serviceable licensed game, and certainly looks incredible for both the SNES and Genesis, I've been spoiled by newer and better licensed games, both from Toy Story and other franchises. This was my first full playthrough of the game, and while I think I'll replay some levels, like Really Inside the Claw Machine, the rest of the game doesn't do enough to justify me coming back to it. On to the second game in the trilogy, it's Toy Story 2 Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue. Now this is going to be a review of the PlayStation 1 version of the game, mainly because it's the one that I've grown up with and am the most used to playing at this point. Without further ado, let's get started. Have you ever played Super Mario 64 and thought to yourself, boy, this sure is difficult? Well, Toy Story 2 is the game for you. A game that takes all of its cues from other collectathon platformers of the era and creates a simplistic yet charming experience from beginning to end. The game is split into 15 levels and 5 zones, with groups of 3 levels per zone. 2 of the levels in a zone are collection missions for the game's MacGuffins Pizza Planet tokens, and the third mission is always a boss fight. From a biplane to a slime monster to utility belt Buzz attempting to run you over in a car, to Stinky Pete and 2 nameless cowboys attempting to curb stomp you. The game is nothing you haven't seen before. From Andy's house to Al's toy barn and penthouse, the game is full of iconic set pieces from the film, and takes full advantage of them, fleshing them out for interesting and simple level design. There are some original levels as well, like a construction site, Andy's neighborhood, and a rainy alleyway. The levels are simple in design, and while some are better than others, the construction site, alleyways, and elevator levels are all incredibly vertical, and the elevator shaft is filled with so much waiting and doing nothing. Each level has 5 goals: collecting 50 coins for ham, finding some sort of collectible multiple times throughout the level, a race, a puzzle or hidden objective, and a boss fight. There are some levels where Mr. Potato Head will have lost a piece of himself and require Buzz to find it. In exchange, he will grant Buzz with one of 5 power-ups: a shield that grants Buzz temporary invulnerability, rocket boots that makes Buzz's movement incredibly fast and constantly moving forward, shooting discs, which act as homing shots against some of the tougher airborne and more mobile enemies, the grappling hook, which acts like the hook shot within the Zelda game minus the combat capabilities, and finally the spring boots, which allow Buzz to spring into action several feet above the ground. When I mentioned that this game was easy, I really wasn't kidding. Fall damage is in this game, but batteries are all over the place to recharge your health. If you're low on health, and there's no batteries, you can simply quit the mission and re-enter it to refill your health. If you happen to die, which is very rare, you respawn at the exact point where you died. The game is very forgiving. In fact, the only challenge this game gives me personally are the last 2 bosses of the game, the Blacksmith and Stinky Pete, who are immune to Buzz's laser attack and can only be hurt by his spinning melee attack. The reason I find these 2 quote-unquote challenging is because the melee spin has to be charged, which leaves me open, isn't invincible, which leaves me open, and has a cooldown period where Buzz recovers from dizziness, leaving me open. And the only 2 attacks these guys have are a melee attack that has a direct shockwave that travels on the ground to hit me. It's almost like these 2 bosses were explicitly designed to be lives guzzlers, and that's all they are to me. Come in with max lives and bum rush your way to victory, since a respawn simply means your health resets while theirs is still lowered. If I'm being honest, this game isn't anything incredibly innovative. The levels are simple, the graphics are good for sure, but some things look a little off, Buzz's face for example. The only thing I find truly great about the game is the soundtrack, which is super catchy and very video gamey, if that describes it well. The tracks are designed to stick in a player's mind, and they certainly do, well enough that certain YouTube personalities even use them in their videos.
At least now I know where Cat Icarus got his music from.
I think that Toy Story 2, at the end of the day, is the equivalent of solid game design fundamentals being implemented, and the end result being a game that reaps the benefits. No major flaws, but nothing that you won't see from other games either. Anyone who loves Toy Story, like us, will get a kick out of it, and I personally still find time to replay this game now and again, but unless you like Toy Story or want an easy to pick up and play collectathon game, I would suggest other games like Banjo-Kazooie or the Spyro trilogy for more interesting games.
Yeah, I'm with you there. While I enjoy playing collectathon games like Battle for Bikini Bottom and Spyro, it does feel like a typical collectathon game, but with Toy Story attached. The level select screen style would later be used in games like Finding Nemo, surprising that both games were made by the same company, and graphically it looks pretty good. And it's always nice to see clips from the actual movie, even though they do look compressed. But other than that, it's just a basic collectathon platform game on the PS1. Nothing less and nothing more. After Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear became so popular that he got to star in his very own movie turned TV show, Buzz Lightyear Star Command.
I really love this movie and TV show. I had this Buzz plushie from when I was a kid, and I've even got the game for it. See?
Wait, what?
Isn't it great?
No! It's awful! Get it off! Get it off!
Aw, okay.
Which is why I'll be talking about Buzz Lightyear Star Command on the PS1.
This show kicked all kinds of butt. The movie/pilot for the show, Buzz Lightyear Star Command The Mission Begins, is everything I wanted out of a Buzz Lightyear movie when I was young. It was funny, it was gripping, it was corny, it was sad, it was well animated, well voiced, it had everything. Tim Allen actually reprising his role for this blew my mind as a kid, because I was so used to the movie voices and TV game voices being different. And all of the new voices, like Wayne Knight giving an intimidating yet hilarious take as Zurg, Nicole Sullivan as the spunky hotshot rookie Mira Nova, Larry Miller's funny performance as XR, and the rest of the cast are all very great. The TV show, which is a direct continuation of the movie, features Patrick Warburton as Buzz, and I'll admit, I don't think he's awful, but he's definitely not Tim Allen. It sounds more like Joe from Family Guy doing a Buzz impression.
Or Kronk from Emperor's New Groove.
Right.
Regardless, the show was an awesome episodic romp featuring Buzz's crew at Star Command fighting the forces of evil. And while I sadly missed out on the show's initial run, I did get to watch the reruns that aired up until 2008. It's something I'll always treasure, and something that Disney really needs to release on home video, because as of now, the movie is only available to watch at home, not the TV show, and that's a crime.
I agree with you on that. As a guy who's only watched the movie and some episodes of the show, I feel that it is nostalgic to all the Toy Story fans who grew up in the early 2000s. While I do remember watching it on television as a kid, I barely remember any of the episodes because I don't think it left any impact on me. But now when I watch them, I do feel a bit of nostalgia while watching them. And I do agree that the show needs to have a DVD release. Or better yet, have the entire series on DVD. So with that said, on to the game! Ah, yes. I love seeing the intro from the show. What episode is this from? Oh, I see. So we see the game kinda feels like Toy Story 2 with the level select, but that is until Captain Nebula tells you the basics of the game.
Now, Buzz, your mission in each level is to arrest the bad guy.
And that's exactly what you do. And how do you do that? By racing your opponent to the getaway spot and defeating the bad guy in order to have them arrested. At first, it feels like a fun concept to race against your opponent to the finish line and get a reward for winning. Well, in this case, it's having Mirror making your boss battle easier by taking away half of the enemy shield's energy. However, if your opponent makes it to the getaway spot before you do,
you only have 15 seconds to catch up with them. Otherwise, you lose, Ranger.
But going back to what I said earlier, this is what you're doing in every level. Race your opponent and battle your opponent, hence repeat. Everybody super light, you're racing, trying to get your feet right into space. But you also get assistance from Booster, who ground pounds enemies just to get them out of your way. Actually, who am I kidding? These enemies are more like obstacles that block your way. They take a long time to destroy, and getting hit by them takes very little damage. After doing that more than 10 times, it starts to get repetitive, which is something I personally don't like. I like to have more variety in my gameplay, you know, like in Toy Story on the Genesis. Graphically, the levels look pretty good. I even like the celluloid graphics on the models because it's used beautifully for a PS1 game. The boss battles are okay. The shields are color-coded, which you can easily specify which weapon to use to destroy the shield. After that, the bad guy just fades from existence. But I do enjoy watching clips from the show. However, there are levels that I absolutely cannot stand for the life of me. I'm talking about you, Ice World. This level has everything that I hate. Ice physics, the plasma monster blocking my path, which I blame the camera for, and knockback when getting hit by the monster. Oh, and did I mention that you have to beat the levels without dying? Yeah, there are no checkpoints in this game, which means if you die, no matter how much progress you made, you have to start the level all over again. Other than that, the game isn't that bad, but it could have been worse. The level design is pretty good, and the characters look pretty good too. I don't understand why the music sounds similar to Toy Story Racer, but it might just be a coincidence. It would have been better just to have music from the show and use those for each level. Still, if you're a fan of the games that have you race opponents and battling them afterwards, then this is for you.
Since I grew up with the Game Boy Color port of this game, I was expecting something better or at least different from that one. And what I got wasn't awful, but it definitely left me wanting more out of it. Racing as a concept doesn't work nearly as well when the opponent has no personal connection to the player outside of must beat, and with graphics like these, I think another collectathon or heck a beat 'em up or maybe on-rail space shooter like Star Fox would have been just fine and allowed for us to soak up the game a little bit more. As it is, it's a serviceable but very bland PS1 game.
And finally, onto the last of the Toy Story licensed games, Toy Story 3, no subtitle included. I will be reviewing the PlayStation 3 version of the game.
And I'll be reviewing the Xbox 360 version.
Right out of the gate, this game is a massive leap in presentation from the PS1 games. While those games use compressed footage from the films for their cutscenes, this game is able to use the in-game engine to fully render scenes, and it looks incredible. I was shocked at just how true to the films these characters and environments looked. The game is a visual treat, and fans of the series will feel right at home. In terms of gameplay, there are two modes, a level-to-level platformer with collectibles to unlock things in the game's new mode, Toy Box. Toy Box mode is something the game really wants you to partake in. After the opening level, which mirrors the film's opening with Woody and Buzz fighting the evil Dr. Porkchop on the runaway train, the game sends you into the Toy Box where you can control Woody, Buzz, or Jessie as the town's sheriff, where you complete missions and expand the town, arrest thieves, help people in town get dressed, and even go on intergalactic missions in space. There's a lot to do in this mode, and it's pretty cool getting to see characters like Stinky Pete not trying to kill me.
Or that we don't see him in makeup based on what happened in Toy Story 2.
She's an artist.
There's vehicles like Bullseye and cars to drive, buildings to unlock that give players more missions to complete. It's exactly what the mode labels itself as, a toy box for players to fully customize to their own experience. Want to drive around like a maniac? You can do it. Want to customize your buildings? You can do it. Race around with Bullseye? You can do it. Grind rails like it's Sonic Heroes? You can do it. The mode is a cornucopia of game mechanics and ideas that comes together to become a fairly meaty mode that more than does its job to provide players with a fun experience. Oh, and the PS3 version features a playable Zurg, with his own exclusive missions. Sadly, he's really only half of a character because he can't drive around vehicles and partake in regular missions like the main trio can, but he's a nice distraction for all of 5 minutes.
The other game mode is, of course, the story mode. It's actually really fun to play through the entire movie in game form, even with the slight changes. One of my favorite levels has to be the Buzz video game. This is a perfect example of how a video game level should be. Not only does the level look exactly like the movie, but the music was also taken from the movie.
Honestly, why wasn't this level implemented in Toy Story 2?
Even Zurg's fortress looks spot on, especially the boss battle against Zurg himself.
So, we meet again, Buzz Lightyear, for the last time.
It's just amazing. Another level that I like is Bonnie's house because it shows the challenges within a platform level with ledge climbing, wall jumping, and rail grinding. It even occurs in the one place that has been corrupted by capitalism.
Space!
Let's talk about the other levels. Sunnyside Daycare has you play 3 minigames, and that's it. Prison Break feels like a Metal Gear Solid level. The Junkyard feels like it would be an easier level if you had friends to play with. And the Haunted Bakery, while not in the movie, has the most difficult boss battle in the entire game. Not only do you shoot at muffins and Dolly Witch clones, but you also shoot at a giant Dolly Witch that shoots lasers from her eyes. I love the game's music, especially Bullseye's theme. It's like the one in Toy Story 2 when Woody rides Bullseye to the plane trying to save Jessie. Overall, the story mode feels like a linear version of the Toy Box mode with the same power-ups and the same movesets for each character. But other than that, I love the design of the characters and the levels. And while there are no compressed scenes from the movie, it's nice to see in-game cutscenes that run pretty smoothly.
So with that in mind, I think we covered most of the Toy Story games based on the movies. And to be honest, they're actually pretty good games.
Personally, I agree. The Toy Story games, for as flawed as they can be, take the basic design fundamentals of the time period and insert them comfortably into the Toy Story mold. It makes for a very solid set of games that even a child of today could enjoy.
Personally, I felt that the movie tie-in games based on the trilogy are amazing in terms of gameplay and graphics during their time, and they each replicate each film perfectly. While I haven't played much of Toy Story 2, I had enjoyment playing through Toy Story 1 and 3. It left an impact of nostalgia and takes me back to when I first saw these movies for the first time. Buzz Lightyear's Star Command was... While the game is based on the TV show of the same name, it left no impact on me at all. If I were you, I'd recommend watching the show, or better yet, watch the movie. That at least would give you a clear idea of the show. Overall, the games did their best to please gaming audiences both young and old, and I think they did their job pretty well. If you want to have a good time and perhaps prepare yourself for the upcoming 4th movie, then I would recommend either watching the trilogy or playing the trilogy.
Now, if memory serves me right, somebody owes me a Woody doll. So, hand it over.
Oh, yeah, the toys are gone.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they just, kinda got up and left while we were reviewing the games, but, good luck finding them, I guess.
So, now what do we do?
I don't know about you, but, I've got some amiibo I think I could sell on eBay at exuberant prices right about now.
Some people never change, do they? I'm the Fairly Odd Gamer.
And I'm Toothpaste Reviews.
And we wish you all good luck for the rest of your day or night, wherever you are.
Take care, everyone.
everyone.